Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of SecOps Studios, your weekly show for all things SaaS and cybersecurity. Today, we're excited to speak with Ismael Dawood, former MMA fighter turned hacker who specializes in penetration testing. We'll speak about what pen testing is and why companies need it. With that, please let me introduce your host, Dan Barta. Dan, take it away.
Jeremy, thanks so much, and everyone. Thank you again for joining us for another SecOps Studios. We're really excited. Like Jeremy alluded to, this is a really interesting talk where we have with Ismael Dawood, MMA fighter turned hacker. It's going to be a fantastic conversation about pen testing, what it is, why you need it, what happens there. But without further ado, Ismael, why don't you give a brief introduction to yourself, a little superhero origin story, how we got to today.
I'd say for a long time, like when I was a kid, I didn't really enjoy school, like general school. For a long time, I did MMA. My parents signed me up very early. Uh, they liked my dad was like a previous bodybuilder. He liked working out, and then for me, it was sort of like following in his footsteps type thing. But my parents signed me up for MMA, so I started learning how to fight. When I joined high school, I also got very interested in gaming. So I started seeing a lot of like PC gamers and stuff like that. So I ended up building my first computer at I think 14. It's not as hard as it sounds. Everyone is just Googling and it's very easy. So I started getting really into like hardware, different parts, building computers for my brothers, my family, friends, all while doing MMA on the side. Actually, MMA was probably the main thing, building computers on the side. I would finish school, I would go straight to MMA, um, 4 to 5 hours, then head home. When I started high school and stuff, I also started doing high school wrestling, and my day kind of looked like school, wrestling practice at school, and then MMA, and then I would get home like 12, and then rinse and repeat. Um, but for a long while, I honestly just didn't think I would get into tech as like a career. I started, focusing mainly on like my MMA and my wrestling career. Um, when I got a bit older, like starting college, I kind of like, I don't know if I want to, you know, deal with the long-term health issues that come with MMA. It was fun though, I really liked it. But when I started college, you know, I didn't really enjoy the general ed classes. I ended up leaving college and doing personal training at a private gym. So for a long while, I was doing, personal training and help people get to where they want. Um, and then eventually, my gaming sort of caught up to me, and I ended up getting hacked on a game called RuneScape. And I think Dan, you said you played it before. Yeah, so I
I'm
had an
familiar. I'm familiar.
yeah, I had a game account get hacked, and I was really shocked because I was like how does this even happen? You only really hear about this from like someone like, oh, my friend hacked me because they got hold of their phone or something, right? But I
Hmm.
didn't actually think I would get hacked, and ended up being that one of my passwords was reused, and that company had a data breach, and because of that, someone was able to get into my account. And from there, that sort of brought me to like a rabbit hole of like data breaches, cybersecurity, and how like I guess hidden but great the community actually is. Like I haven't seen like before that. I haven't. It wasn't something that I thought of like cybersecurity. Like what is that? And then I started getting like advertisements for cybersecurity, and I saw like some boot camp thing. That's why I was like, whatever, I'll sign up for it. Sounds like fun. Um, I ended up getting a scholarship for the boot camp, going through the boot camp, and then starting out with a red team was like insane to me. It was like its own like it brought out something in me that I didn't even think I had. I was
Right.
doing personal training for so long. I joined the boot camp, and then I started doing red team stuff, and I'm like, holy, this is like fun. This is really fun. And I was spending like 9 to 6 at the boot camp. Get home maybe like 7, and then from 7 to like 1 in the morning doing like hack the box or other platforms to practice red teaming. It was just so fun to me. And then eventually I ended up getting OSCP, working at the boot camp, and then now working as a security software engineer, primarily for red teaming engagements and that. Yeah, so here I am.
Yeah, man, that's so interesting going from MMA to having your RuneScape account hacked to, people who aren't out there. RuneScape was a fantastic game, maybe
Yeah,
like 10 years ago. I think it might be a little outdated now, but still a fun game. Having that hacked to now, getting a couple advertisements to now you're in pen testing. That
yeah,
it's just so funny, and it's something like you said you never thought you were going to get into. That you were just like, oh, like you didn't even know it was a thing. Which, to be honest, that me as well. The red team side of stuff. I always kind of knew that there was cybersecurity, but like the red team and pen test, which we'll dive into in a little bit, never clicked in my brain. But now that I know about it, it makes so much sense. But
mm,
before we go any further, so what are you doing today? We kind of talked a little bit about red team, and we understand you're in penetration testing, but like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? What does your day look like?
well, for me, I have different roles, and since I'm newer, some of the time I'm shadowing more of the senior developers, and senior cybersecurity folks. For me, I focus mainly on like pen testing and secure development. I've been learning recently about cloud security, and I'm being trained on that. Um, like very recently, I just had a application pen test, which I don't work on it alone since I'm newer. I have like the more senior guys, um, but it's mainly pen testing, like testing out a company's security, trying to find different ways in, and it's fun, man. It's fun. I always say it. It's fun. It's a good time.
it it sounds fun. So, kind of understand what pen testing is, trying to see, what the vulnerabilities are in the company, but why would a company need you guys? Or like, what kind of triggers that need, say, hey, we need some penetration testing done. What's kind of that, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's not as black and white as like, uh, there's like two main things I'd say, but it's not as black and white. It's like one is being like compliance, like the company has to get their security tested, like they want the bare minimums, like okay, go in, get out, that's it, like give us a report, and then there's also the other side of it, like of it, which is like a company wants to see how secure they actually are, right? And for nowadays, like a lot of things that are happening, such as like ransomware in hospitals and crazy hacks like the solar wing hack, like a lot of people have to, be worried that they're at risk because they're not taking normal security measures, right? You could have, I guess, a company that straight up wants to see how good they are, and they'll let a red teamer do as they please. They'll give them a scope and be like, hey, find what you can. um Maybe you're going up against a blue team who's not against, but like you have to, stay stealthy so a blue team doesn't see you, or you want to stay hidden, or you can make as much noise as you want in the network as long as you're able to find a vulnerability. It just depends on the scope. But a lot of the time, like and we've had this before where, finding too many vulnerabilities kind of looks bad on the company, which it's weird to me, but it is what it is. Uh,
Right.
it's fun. Some companies, they do it for compliance. Some do it because they actually want to see the security, right?
Right. Right. That makes a lot of sense. And then that is funny that, sometimes, they're like, whoa, whoa, wait, wait, we don't need to know about all this stuff. We just
Yeah.
have this small scope. So, but talking more about penetration tests, how does that process start? You said like they kind of give you a scope, but, you know, how do you begin testing that? I mean, how do you start to, do they say, hey, here's, access to one thing, or is it more like, hey, we want you to test out our network, like go, we're not going to tell you anything.
Yeah, so there's multiple different types of tests, right? For me recently, I've had a company ask for an external and an internal pen test. External being like open source intelligence, what can I do on their web app from the outside, on multiple of their web applications? What can I get on the outside without not really having much information, just like, their basic company name and etc. And it's like, go ahead, find what you can. Can you get anything Are you able to mess with the website, the database? Are you able to mess with anything on the outside? And then there's also the internal pen test, which it depends, varying from company to company how they do it. Uh, but the one I recently had was they gave me a Kali provision, which I'm already on their network.
Hmm.
But where can I pivot from there? Can I get to a different subnet? Can I get to a different network? What information can I gather from this machine that has nothing, just my red team tools, just a Kali provision, and what can I get from that? What can I do from there?
Awesome. That's really cool. So when you're doing those searches, I mean, obviously you're trying to find sensitive data, but what are the things that you're typically finding? Is it passwords? Is it like gaining access to different files, or like what are the kind of things that you're trying to find, I guess, when you're doing one of those like internal testing?
Well, just it really depends, right? Like, so for a healthcare company, like, is there any data that shouldn't be there? Is it there? Like, are they violating HIPAA laws? Things like that. You could also have, can I get into a manager's department's, like, workstation? What can I get? What information I could get? It's not always just, uh, public inform or like private information. It's also like, um, what can I do to those person's computers? Like, how was I able to get into this workstation? I shouldn't be like a random person on a network and be able to get into that person's computer. It's
Right.
kind of, uh, it just really depends, right? Different companies, you're looking for different things, and most of the time, you're just looking for a vulnerability or a way in to pivot.
Definitely. Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. So, with pen testing, you kind of talk about, some red team tools. What are the kind of tools that you guys are using? I don't know if you're at liberty to say exactly which ones, but what kind of tools do you guys use to, kind of get into these, to pivot, to use your term, into different, areas of the network?
Well, it really just depends. For me, I'm not like some expert pen tester. I'm someone new to the field, someone who is just now like understanding how, complex it really gets. Uh, but it really depends on what you're trying to get into, right? You could have your own custom tooling that you created solely for that vulnerability. There's zero-day vulnerabilities which you found on your own that aren't really public yet. So tooling is really like custom and proprietary, but there are a lot of uh, tools that I use that are just public, like Nmap for one, which is a port scanner that it's mainly used to check what services and what things are running on certain ports and what versions, things like that you can enumerate. Um, for the more complex pen testing, like a lot of the time you'll see like the senior pen testers using proprietary tools that they created for that situation or for situations like that.
Awesome, awesome. So there is a part of it where you are actually creating tools. In some cases,
Yeah.
there are some cases where you are creating tools. Have you created any tools, or?
Oh no, for me, no, not yet. I hope I want to get to the point where I can, confidently say like, yes, I'm a good pen tester. I can do this solo and I could do this on my own, and like hard challenges that, you know, someone newer like a junior pen tester. Well, like I wouldn't say I'm a bad pen tester. It's just it comes with experience, like going
Right.
through the motions. You get more experience, more insight of how to look at things in different ways. For me, I think I'm decent at pen testing, but can I create a custom tool to with a potential 0-day, maybe not, maybe in the future soon. I'm not, you know not sure though. Always
Well, hey,
practicing.
I got faith in you, man. But I guess that kind of brings up another question: is, what is that delineation? What makes someone good at pen testing?
Mhm.
Where does that kind of shift from, like you said, like being a junior pen tester to being, full fledged? I guess, if we want to use that term, is it being able to create those tools, or what does that look like?
Well, there's like for me, the way I see it is multiple types of pen testers, right? There's like a good junior pen tester, a bad junior pen tester, a good senior pen tester, and a bad senior pen tester, right? Because um there is a lot of like pen testing that I see that's like oh, we just ran a Nessus scan on this. Everything seems good. The scan says everything's good, so everything must be good. That's it. Penta's done. But in reality, like, you want to look for things. It's sort of like you have a security camera outside your house, and then you walk in front of it, like, oh, it works. Security's good now. But it's like, did you see any weak points? Are there any holes in the camera? Like, you want someone who's looking for other ways in, not just a straightforward linear thinking. You want to find things that you normally wouldn't find. A hacker, like, APT, or a dedicated hacker is not going to sit there and be like, oh, well, couldn't find a way in, see ya. No, they're going to be persistent. It's about persistence, and how determined this hacker is, right? If you're not a pen tester that actually looks for that, are you actually doing your job? you know so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of being reactive versus proactive. And I
Hmm.
really like that example you said. Yeah, like if you put up a security camera, walk in front of it, hey, it works. Like, okay, we're good, but where is it not pointing? What are we not looking at? So, you know,
Hmm.
something I think that's really interesting, and maybe you could expand on, is really, it sounds like in pen testing, you kind of have to put yourselves in a nefarious actor's shoes. You kind of have to pretend you're the bad guy. So, what is that like? Is there anything you do to kind of get in that mindset, or like stuff that you have to research to, like, get in that, hacker mindset, or
Oh
like,
yeah.
what does that look like?
It's funny because everyone always brings up the hacker mindset, and I don't think it's something that you could just like turn on. It's not just like, okay, hacker mindset on, attack. It's sort of like, for me anyways, it feels very much like a professional video game. Like, I have to be
Okay.
professional. I have to, do what I have to for the job, but I'm also there like, can I break in? Like, can I actually do this? Like, it feels good to myself when I actually find a way in, or when I break something that, shouldn't be broken, in a good way, when I'm getting hired
Yeah.
to do, all legally. But
Only when they ask you to, right?
Only when they ask. Yeah. Yeah. It feels good, and like, I strive on that feeling. Like, yes, I got in. I don't sit there and, like, okay, let's go, hacker mindset. Typing away. No, I actually get into it. Like, I'm like, okay, let's do it. It feels very fun, like a new challenge.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I like that how you say, it's kind of like a professional video game, which kind
Hmm.
of is cool. It ties into both your MMA past, because that's
Hmm.
maybe more professional, and you kind of have to psych yourself in. So, do you think part of, being an MMA, which obviously is something you have to really get psyched up for? I mean, I've never been in an MMA fight, but I'm pretty sure if someone, told me to get into the octagon, I don't know if I could pump myself up enough. But do you think that, part of that training, obviously you have to get yourself ready for those kind of matches? Do you think that kind of helps you when you're, quote unquote, getting into that mindset, or as you're kind of zoning in and, kind of doing the pen testing? Because it's kind of similar, not really. I mean,
Hmm.
you're punching security, not another person, but,
Yeah.
still.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think what MMA and wrestling helped me out a lot with is, I guess, the self-determination and discipline, right? I can
Mhm.
sit there and, you know, grind out hours and hours trying to find, something, or like learning something, because, going through MMA, it's not like, you know, it's sort of like Karate Kid type thing, Mr. Miyagi, and, you actually have to put in work. You have to put in the time, you have to put in the determination and the work. So it does help a lot in that sense, and like getting yourself in that state of mind, sitting there and, I guess, pushing yourself. I know I'm just sat at a computer, but it's also like pushing yourself mentally, like, okay, I can do
Mhm.
this. Let's, how am I gonna go about this, etc. uh, I just find it, for me, MMA, it's almost parallel. Like, you get into that mindset, you get into that determined mode, and see what you can go from there, like attack mode. You know.
Yeah. That's awesome, and I totally agree. I mean, that's definitely something super taxing to be able to sit there and kind of just do one thing, especially, when you're trying to hack. But, what is, what's a timeline look like when you're doing that? You kind of mentioned, sitting there for hours and kind of trying to break into things. Like, what's like a typical timeline, or amount of time, I guess, that it takes you like to find these vulnerabilities? Obviously, it's different every time depending on their security and the scope, but like, what's like kind of the averages? I mean, are you finding stuff in 2 hours, or is it taking you like 7 hours? Like, what does that look like?
Well, honestly, it varies, right? Like, there's not one simple answer for it. How fast is it? Can you
Right.
find a vulnerability? Because some are really like. So I remember the last pen test, like within like the first 10 minutes, we had like a pretty like serious vulnerability that we found. But then sometimes it takes hours. We're sitting there, like, why can't I get in? Like, what am I missing? And then we'll finally get it. It just depends really on like what you're looking for. Um, Usually for me, I go about it in not in a straight methodological. I don't know. I can't say the word right now.
Methodology. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
guess. Uh, way I have like a methodology, but going different paths just depends. It just depends really.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess kind of dovetailing off of that, how do you guys delineate between, you guys are actually really testing for, because obviously a lot of companies have security precautions, and you kind of talk about sometimes you're going up, quote unquote, against a blue team, you know,
Mhm.
how do you guys, is there ever a time when you're like, oh, we can't get in, and then it just turns out, oh, they have really good security? Or is that something you guys kind of, you're like, oh, we can't get in because they have good security? Has that ever happened?
Oh, for me personally, no, not yet. Like, there's always some sort of like way we find like we'll find a vulnerability because a lot of time there's like human error, right? Not everybody's
Mhm.
perfect, like as well as the software people are making it. It's not always gonna be like, wow, damn it, they got me, I couldn't find anything. There's always like at least one little thing or one something that like tackles onto another and onto another. Like that hasn't happened for me yet. Again, I'm new. I'm sure that's happened to like a ton of other people where it's security is just top notch.
Yeah, yeah. I would have felt a lot better if you had said, "Yeah, there's a lot of times where insecurity just keeps us out." That would have, helped me sleep better at night. But I guess, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And obviously you're doing your job. You're trying to get in there. But kind of switching gears here. With penetration testing, obviously, especially last year and even more so in the last couple months, we've heard about a lot of large data breaches. We've been hearing, cyber crime. I forget the exact statistic, but it's way up. So, do you
Mhm.
see in the future more companies reaching out to firms like yours and doing more penetration testing, or what has that geared up more over the last 6-12 months, or what does that kind of look like?
Well, statistic wise, I know that I'm seeing it all over now that like cybersecurity is starting to like ramp up because that's sort of like the new, I guess, warfare. But I don't want to be too like exaggeratory. But like
Right.
there's a lot of it happening now, and like people aren't taking it as seriously as they should, in my opinion. I think people are, oh, not people, but like I guess shareholders and investors, they don't really understand the aspect of security. It's like, oh, why don't you just fix it? It's like, it's not that easy. But yeah, no, there's definitely a ramp up. There's definitely a lot of like things going on where companies are starting to be like, okay, not we actually have to take this serious now. Like, um, things happen, but if it's on, laziness of a company, for example, they don't want to put in the money or the effort of securing the company, then I think there should be more severe consequences, and I guess that would be more people would be like, okay, we got to step up our security now.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. And it's funny you say that, because it's always, and it's something that I've seen. It's always, oh, we don't know about cybersecurity until someone gets hit, and then that's their
Yeah.
number one thing. And it's, luckily though, some of the people I've been speaking to lately, I know 2021 has a big focus on that, because it's kind of, I think the last year has really shown a light on, hey, this is what can happen. Especially as everyone started working from home, and a lot more vulnerabilities kind of came to light. But I know we're kind of coming up on time here. Ish, but I'd love, why don't you talk a little bit about your company, kind of what you guys are doing, how we can find you guys, or if anyone out there is looking for someone to do some penetration testing, how do they find you? How do they reach out to you? How do they
Uh,
hire you?
okay, yeah. So the company I work for currently is called Twinfire. It's a fairly new company, rebranded. We do a lot of app security, offensive security, but we also are uh gearing towards more cloud security, cloud migration, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. We're getting more into like infrastructure and helping companies get secure. For example, we'll do a pen test for a company, and maybe they have very poor security standards. We can help them after the pen test, like explain to them like, okay, there's this, and this wrong. We can help you build out this infrastructure. Um, a lot of the things we're doing now is cloud. Cloud is becoming a very big thing. um Cloud really, everyone is getting uh very cloud based, I guess, if that's the right term.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for we'll be here for a long time, and hopefully uh people like us.
Definitely, man. Yeah, and I think that's a smart move. Kind of, I think everything's moving to the cloud. Yeah, I that's just the way I think. Well, it's cloud.
Yeah,
My favorite saying is, there's no cloud. It's just someone else's computer.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so, but there's still vulnerabilities there, and I love that you guys are looking at that. But Ishmael, thank you again for speaking with us today, and everyone, anyone out there. If you're looking for a pen tester, if you need to, check your security, reach out to Ishmael, reach out to Twinfire. They're going to help you guys out. But again, Ish, thank you for talking. It's really awesome hearing about your story and learning about pen testing today.
Thank you, thank you. It was nice having me. It was really nice talking to you. Yeah, been great.
Definitely. We're definitely gonna have to have you back. But thank you again, Ish, and everyone out there. Thank you so much for joining. Again, go find Ismael Dawood, follow him. If you guys are looking for if you have any pen testing needs, make sure you reach out to him. I know he's going to be the guy that's going to help you guys out.